Alright guys, so to start this video, I do want to go ahead and throw this out here. Soundpeats, I absolutely love you guys, but I do have to say that you're making some decisions lately that I can't seem to make a whole lot of sense out of. And that kind of ties into the pair that we're gonna check out today, which is the brand new Soundpeats H2. Now, if you'll remember the original H1s, I was completely blown away by. It was an inexpensive pair of earbuds. It had hybrid dual drivers. It just had this really incredible sound quality you wouldn't expect on a pair that was priced the way that they were. So with the Soundpeats H2, I've went in with the same expectations, kind of like I did with the Soundpeats T3s, because I like the T2s so much. But with the T3s, it just did not make sense because it just seemed like a completely different earbud altogether, and it didn't even seem comparable to the T2s. And so I'm a little concerned going into testing this pair. I'm hoping that they didn't do the same thing with the H2s that they did with the T3s, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what all comes inside the box. We're going to talk about the audio and see if it's worth the $80 price tag. Although today is Cyber Monday and it's actually on sale for 64 bucks. But let's go ahead and start with the design difference between these and the H1s, because with the H2s, they have now made them a stem style earbud where the H1 wasn't, and they've also changed the color scheme. Now it has that silver and rose gold, kind of like the Soundpeats Sonics. Now I do like the offset logo, which seems to be completely new, so I don't mind the design, even though it is a stem style earbud, which normally I'm not a huge fan of. Now I did see where it says that in the future these will work with Soundpeats app like the H1 does, but as it is right now, it does not work with Soundpeats app, so I'm going to talk about the earbuds just the way that they are out of the box. So as far as some of the similarities that these have compared to the H1s, I am happy to say that they did keep the hybrid dual drivers, although these use an 8mm dynamic driver where the original ones had an 8.6, but it's still using the Knowles balanced armature drivers mixed with the dynamic drivers. These still have Bluetooth 5.2. They're also still using the Qualcomm 3040 chip, which again is one of those chips that you're going to get really good performance out of, and you're usually going to get very good battery life. And on top of that, these also have aptX adaptive like the H1s did, and they also have a gaming mode. So if you're looking for a pair to use for gaming and movies, and you don't want to have to worry about lag, this is definitely one of those pairs that I can recommend. And with it having that aptX adaptive, these go up to 24-bit playback, and it also has a variable bit rate, which means it's always going to try to adapt to your signal, your connection, the music you're listening to make sure that you're getting the best quality that you can, and it's not just, you know, locking it down at one lower bit rate and you're stuck at that. So aptX adaptive is definitely one of the Bluetooth codecs that I'm a huge fan of. So now to start with some of the differences. The original pair came in rated at IPX5, but with the H2s, they now have dropped down to IPX4. Now, if this pair had active noise canceling, the IPX4 would make sense, because usually companies kind of stick with the IPX4 so that the coding doesn't mess up the microphones that they're using to give you active noise canceling. But this pair doesn't have active noise canceling, so the IPX4 is a little confusing, but it'll be fine against splashes and rain and sweat and things like that. But this is definitely not one of those pairs that you could submerge into water. Now moving over to what you get inside the box, you do get the usual small, medium, and large silicone ear tips, and it also comes with a USB-C cable. And this is a huge difference between the H2s and the H1s, because the H1s had Qi wireless charging, so you didn't need to use the USB-C cable. You could just come in, drop it on a wireless charger, and it would just charge. But the H2s do not have Qi wireless charging. So you're going to need to use that USB-C cable, which is going to frustrate a lot of people. I am not a fan of this choice because I like having a Qi wireless charging case. That now moves us on to the next huge difference between these and the H1s, because the H1s had really good battery life. You could get 10 hours out of the earbuds, and you could get up to 40 hours using the case. So that was really impressive battery life, especially considering that it had dual drivers. Now with the H2s, you're basically getting half of that. You're now only going to get 5 hours out of the earbuds, with around 20 hours using the case. And these don't have any kind of fast charge feature, just like the H1s. So I'm kind of confused as to why the battery life has now been cut in half. But now moving over to the actual case and the earbuds themselves, the case on these are very slippery. It's got a glossy feel on the outside. Now on the back, you can see the USB-C input for charging. And then around on the front, you can see the 3 indicator lights. That way you can kind of gauge how much battery life is on the case. But when you pop open the lid, that is where you can see the earbuds. And again, even though it has that stem style design, you can tell that they put some creativity to make these stand out. It doesn't look like a generic looking pair of earbuds, although it does on the outside where the actual bud itself resemble the AirPods Pros quite a bit. But as far as the controls, it does use touch controls, and I am still happy to say that you get control over everything. So you have your play, your pause, your ability to skip your track forward, go backwards, you have your volume control, and then you also have the ability to switch these into gaming mode, all from the earbuds themselves. So I'm glad they stuck with that. But one thing they did improve upon are the microphones. Now they're still using 4 mics, they're still using CVC 8.0, but this is where that IPX rating going backwards to IPX4 actually helps. There's not as much coating on the microphones, and the mics here I feel do a much better job of picking up my voice, and they also do a pretty decent job of blocking out my surroundings. But you guys can be a judge by listening to a test here. All right, guys, so here is the mic test using the Soundpeats H2. And again, I think it picks up my voice very well. In fact, I even think it picks up bass tones pretty nicely. But this is what it would sound like if you were to take a call. And so now here's the mic test with the crowd noise being played, which you can hear here. And so this is what it would sound like if you were to take a call in public. So now let's talk about the sound, because the sound that the H1s had was one of the first budget pair of earbuds that kind of made me realize you could get some really impressive sound quality without having to spend a whole lot of money. And luckily, I feel like the H2s have even improved upon the sound quality that the H1s had. Now, sound is subjective, so you may actually prefer the sound quality from the H1s over the H2s, but I feel like the H2s definitely kicked it up a notch when it comes to bass. I felt like the H1s were really focused on the clarity of the mids and the highs, and the bass always kind of felt like it was a little held back some. And so with the H2s, it's definitely pushed more forward, but because they're using dual drivers, the bass is not killing your mids and highs. You still have that crystal clear sound. Mids on these just sound incredible. The treble even gets like right up to the point of being bright and harsh, which again, I'm a huge fan of, especially now that they've boosted the bass to kind of just balance it out in a very dynamic way. And another thing that I'm also a huge fan of with this pair is it is very open and airy. It definitely just sounds like you're in a much more open environment. I honestly feel like these are slightly more open than the H1s. And then being able to tell where different instruments and sounds are coming from, this pair just handles with absolutely no issues. So really, if you're looking at buying the H2s or the H1s and you're trying to decide, I think it's pretty simple. The H1s are giving you double the battery life. They're giving you Qi wireless charging, and they have slightly better protection because you have an IPX5 rating where the H2s only have an IPX4. And honestly, the only reason I would say go with the H2s is if you're somebody that likes bass. If you like a little bit more punch in the low end, you like that thick rumble, the H2s can deliver that, where I don't feel like the H1s had quite the punch that the H2s have. And then really the only other difference is the microphones on the H2s are slightly better, but really not a significant jump. So it just comes down to sound quality is the only reason I would recommend the H2s. But if you're not a bass head and you just want a very clean, crystal clear sound, then again, that's another reason to go with the H1s. So to wrap this up, this is another new pair from Soundpeats that's leaving me just wondering what they're thinking when they're coming out with a new earbud. You think you just kind of improve upon the version before, and they did that with the sound quality, but they didn't do it with anything else. But guys, that wraps up my video on the Soundpeats H2. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.